Hey guys, have you ever tried making a bass line with a kick drum? I'm going to play some examples and then I'm going to show you how I would go about doing it. Welcome to Origination Overload. Today I'm going to show you how to make this loop. Watch till the end of this video to find out where to download these reason files and to download these songs as loops. Make sure that your kick is not so long that it's playing over itself or that it's playing over when the bass line starts. And also very important, make sure there's no clicks at the beginning of your drum sample. If so, just add a fade in or fade out. You want to make sure that these kicks are not fighting for the same frequency range. A nice trick is to use sidechain compression or ducking. I'm going to make a redrum. I'm going to reset it. I'm going to browse for some kicks. You want something kind of bassy and deep or long. Okay, I'm gonna lay down my kick. I'm gonna duplicate this. I'm gonna go to my second pattern. If I push play, nothing's happening. I'm gonna go to my second kick drum. I'm gonna lay out a pattern. Play it with the kick. You want to make sure they're both mono, so put the width down. Okay, play these together. I want my kick to peak at about -10 dB. And the bass line about 2 decibels below that. Now the trick to make this sound like a bass line is to actually EQ the high frequencies out of it. I'm also going to remove the low frequencies from about 30 Hertz. Now if I go to my kick and I play it, also going to remove the low frequencies, about 30 Hertz below. Can you see this over here, this peak? The fundamental peak over here, the highest point. It's hitting at about 50 or 60 Hertz, right? That's my kick drum. Now I take a look at my kick bass. And it's also actually peaking at about the same place in 50-60 Hertz. So now I've got to decide which sound I want to be my lowest frequency. Do I want my kick to be right at the bottom, or do I want my bass line to have all the low frequencies, or to have all the bass? I think I'm going to keep the low frequencies on the bass line, and so I'm going to remove some of the low frequencies from the kick to about 70 Hertz. And I'm going to go back to my bass line. And over here, you can see there's a second fundamental. It's like there's another peak here and there's another peak here. So that's about 180 Hertz. So I'm going to go to my kick. Now I'm going to minus at that location 180 Hertz, about 3 decibels, 3 to 4 decibels, to give more space now for my bass line. One thing you also really want to look out for is the tail of your kick. is it too long? Is it playing over itself? Sometimes a good way to tell this is to add some distortion or saturation to it, so you can hear the sound in the mid and high frequencies. For example, I'm just gonna make it shorter. You can hear a bit of a click sound actually, so I'm gonna right click on here, edit my sample, make sure I fade this out, and make sure at the beginning it's faded in. Press save. Okay, I'm going to remove this distortion. That was just so I could hear the sound properly. Also want to be careful when you sometimes EQ your sounds, you might have to make them a bit louder. Okay, so now a really good trick is to add a compressor to your kick bass. I'm going to right click it and add M-class compressor. I'm going to go to my kick and I'm going to just delete this distortion. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to rename this Sidechain. Remove all the solo. Push tab and disconnect this. Right click and send it to the compressor. So now this is the kick coming through the bass line. If I put the threshold down and the ratio all the way up and attack fast. This is with it, this is without it. Let's just solo the bass line. With, without. You can hear with this, it's sucking in a bit, it's ducking the sound every time the kick hits. But you'll probably find that if you actually play the song on a cell phone or a laptop, you might not actually hear this bass line. So what I recommend you do is you duplicate it, you go to the EQ, and you remove your high pass filter. Now you play it, and you probably cut the frequencies from about 300-400 hertz down. Just removing all the low frequencies. And on this kick bass copy, I'm going to call it kick bass high. What I'm going to do, first of all, I need to disconnect this compressor because nothing's triggering it. I'm going to add some distortion. Make sure I remove the low frequencies. Just a bit of distortion is nice to give it some presence in the mix. You might also want to listen to it very softly so you can hear the sounds relative to each other. You want them just peeking through. You can hear that click has got quite a fast attack on it, which is making the sound a lot louder than it is. So I'm going to add some more compression to it. You can hear it ever so slightly making the kick softer. Change the ratio. Okay. Another thing you might want to do is also sidechain this high. It's also sometimes nice to make it a bit wider. You can also hear a bit of a click in the sound, so I'm going to fade the sample in, fade the sample out. Okay, I'm going to also sidechain this, so I'm going to duplicate my kick, tab, disconnect it, right click, and go to my second compressor. Switch it on. It's with compression, sidechain compression. Without. If you want to give this maybe to make it sound like it's a bit bigger than it is, you can create a send effects, add some reverb, and I'm going to send these highs to some reverb. You don't want the decay to be so long that it's kind of playing over itself all the time. What also sometimes helps to make that sound bigger is I'm duplicating my kick. I'm going to pitch it up, and what I'm going to do is also remove the low frequencies, about 400-500 hertz, and also add the solo of this, also add some reverb to it. But again, you don't want the decay so long that it's playing over itself. You want it kind of subtle. Okay, I took a bit of a break and I'm continuing. I'm going to rename everything now. Just going to go through these sounds one by one. Make sure that you fade your samples in and out if there's any click sounds. Now I'm going to color them in my mixer. Okay. There's a bit of a strong peak in my click, so I'm making sure to compress it a bit more. I fiddled with my compressor settings a bit earlier, so just take a look to see at the changes. Okay, but the bass line is kind of boring, so I'm just going to spice it up a bit by duplicating it and distorting different sections of it. So this section I'm going to duplicate. This is the highs of my bass. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate this 2 more times. 1, 2. And go back to the first pattern of it. That's my bass. This is the highs. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a 2-bar loop now instead of 1 bar. Right now this is 1 bar. 16 steps. Go over here. Expand it to 32. Make sure that it's about the same. 3, 7, 16. Okay, so I'm going to copy this pattern to the other ones that are duplicated. So now on this first one, I'm only going to keep this first hit on both patterns. On the second one, I'm only going to keep the second hit. And on the third one, I'm only going to keep the third hit. Okay, I'm also going to get rid of the last hit. This last hit on the second bar. So now if I play it, it should sound exactly the same as before. Okay, so now I'm going to make it a bit more interesting by distorting these different kicks So I'm going to go to the second one. I'm going to change the distortion type. Then I'm going to go to the third one and change the distortion type again. And play with some panning. And the amount of reverb. And I'm going to play with the amount of distortion. And I'm going to play with the amount of distortion. It's also nice to add some different reverb sends to make it more interesting. And I played with this compressor settings a bit earlier, so just take a look, it's not default. Cool, I hope you enjoyed that. You can also use this technique on other deep percussion sounds such as claps, cowbells, snares, or toms. It's also important you understand what your speakers are doing when it's producing these frequencies. Generally, when a kick is hitting, your speakers are actually pushing in and out, and you want to give your speaker enough time to recover before it plays your bass line. This is a secret to very punchy and full bass line. To make sure your kick and your bass line are not playing over each other, and to make sure that they are either sidechained or ducking with each other. Sometimes a problem with these kinds of bass lines is if you play your song on a bad set of speakers, for example on a cell phone or laptop, you might not actually hear your bass line and it might not be cutting through the mix. A good solution for this is to duplicate your bass line, reset your EQs so it's flat, and this time remove all your frequencies from about 300 Hertz downwards and add a distortion or saturation to this duplicated bassline. With this duplicated layer of your bassline, you can also increase your stereo width of it. And again, you want to be careful that the second layer of your bassline for the high frequencies is not playing over itself, and you might want to try slightly different compressor settings for this. Maybe it's triggering the sidechains slightly slower. This could give you some interesting groove in your track. You might also want to try some shuffle with the second layer of your bassline and maybe push it forward a little bit. Be subtle with your compression, do not overcompress. When doing sidechaining or ducking, listen carefully to any clicking sounds caused by it being triggered too quickly. Make sure your kick and your bass sounds are mono. Do not add reverb to your bass or your kick. If you're going to do this, you need to duplicate it and only add the reverb to your high frequencies from about 500 Hertz up, and make sure you EQ out all your lows. If you found that entertaining or fun, please follow, like, share, and comment. Thanks, bye. Origination overload.